Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to an exciting new live stream on the Bow Wow Bill page. And I have a wonderful person with me, Jackie. How do you, Barbiera, Barbieri,
Barbieri. Barbieri.
Barbieri,
Hmm.
Jackie Barbieri. She is one of my favorite people, man. We
Oh,
were just this time last week, I was probably stressed out more than I've been stressed out in a very long time.
you lost a little you lost weight, and that's hard to do at my place.
Yes, yeah, we had food every day, and I'm still losing weight because of just how bad I wanted it. I was attending the Napopo Silver School, Bart Bellin Silver School, and happy to report, ladies and gentlemen, that I came home with my Silver School certificate. Yay! What a grueling week of work, and I can't recommend it highly enough.
It is intense, and people would think, the amount of information. Yep, very nice. Martin Systems. It is an intense week for both the host and the students, and it's really interesting to have the opportunity to watch the students develop. And I went through the same suffering that they did. It is not like any other dog training people have ever done. There are a lot
Yes,
of people who say that they know Nipopo and they train in Nipopo, but the dogs tell you otherwise, right? I don't need to see you train. I just need to see your dog, right?
that's right. And what do you see as the biggest indicator that a dog has learned in Napopo?
The dog has heart and soul, desire. There's very little conflict in the training. They're team members. The dog is flashy and looks like Michael and Bart say. The eyes are like cigarettes burning through. You know, when you see a dog in the Nipopo system take a correction, they take the correction as motivation, not demotivation. And that's the first place I see when somebody gives the correction and the dog goes, oh, we're in a Popo knee system, not Nipopo. So an observation, those are the little things that tell you right away.
Yeah, well, that tail,
Mm-hmm.
super high and happy, and the dog is just engaged, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to learn from Bart was just watching him with his dogs. I originally met him at the IACP conference. Oh, geez, 3 4 years ago, and saw him, and he was actually putting the e-collars on people and $100 bill, and that's what got me. I'm like, wow, this is great because there's nothing that we should be doing to these dogs that we're not willing to do to ourselves, right?
That event, I was also there, and I was very fresh from Belgium at the time, and I was astonished to see 500 people sitting on the edge of their chairs for 8 hours with no dogs, and every single person there was just like completely intense. I mean, that it really was something to see.
Well, I knew I needed to learn from him then and there. And anytime that I get that intuitive nudge, I just make it happen. And I went up to him, and really quick, Jackie, I am sharing this on a couple groups and on my personal page. And anybody who's watching this, please hit that share button. I want to get this spread as far and wide as we can while we're live. So anybody has cool questions, and we have a couple special announcements to make during this live stream. So pay attention to those. And so I saw Bart, and I went up to meet him. I saw him, and I said, I would love to attend one of your schools maybe someday. It's a pleasure to meet you. And my beard I was just deciding to grow out this beard, and it was in the middle stages, and I looked like shit. And Bart grabbed my beard. He's like, "You need to shave. You look like shit." And I fell in love. I mean, I was like, "Oh man, I really love this guy now."
For me, I had heard of him and I watched his videos, and I hadn't had the pleasure yet of meeting his other half, Michael, who is an amazing dog trainer and an amazing person, and just so much to teach. Both of those two, it's unbelievable. But I had just seen the videos, and in my training, I had reached a point where grew up in the days where you said down, you said okay, you whack the dog over the shoulder blades, and okay, the dog's down, and that's what they taught in the schools.
Right.
And then I became very, very positive. I found the joys and the love of clicker work and positive training and food training, and my world kind of changed. And then I hit a really big hole in the wall. Whenever I would go to issue some type of correction or negative application to the dogs, my dogs would fall apart, and they took it very personally.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a term I didn't know at the time, but I learned from Michael and Bart, was active submission. My dogs did what they were told to do, but they were actively submissive. And I have videos of that old work that I was very proud of. And if you watch the dogs, you see that they're submissive. They're actively submissive to what I'm doing. And people had been talking about Bart, and people had been to his seminars, and I watched what his videos were, and then I watched what people were doing, and I was like, there's something wrong. Like there's a missing link here. Yes. In the training, and I don't know what it is. And I saw that he opened that school, and it was I think it was January that it opened, and I believe it was March that I was there. As soon as I saw it, I'm like, I have to know what this guy is doing, because his dogs they don't look like Maligators. They look like Malalions. They come into the field,
Malalions.
Malalions.
I think he'll like that too.
It was just a totally different type of dog, and the way that they worked was totally different. Ears forward, tail up. The dogs were excited. It looked like teamwork, and it was beautiful to watch. And, an old trainer friend of mine, who was one of the first dog schools I went to, Randy Hare, he told me once, he said, if you want to know how a dog is really looking, turn the volume down and watch the dog. Mm. And you'll see a totally different picture than like if you're watching a video. And man, the dogs were just incredible. And the funny thing was, there was a couple of really funny stories. Was when I got to Belgium, I showed up, and I was just like this. I was so excited. I got jet lag all night. They're like, you want to rest? I'm like, nope. And
you were ignited.
Oh yeah, I was. And the first thing that they did, was Michael handed me a clicker, and I thought, the bloody hell is this? Like, I know all there is to know about positive training. That's not why I'm here, and it was a lot of money and a lot of time, and I ditched my kids, and and it was, I'm like, I know. And that first day I remember just being like, yeah, I know this, and I of course was being polite, but they knew exactly what was going on in my head, even though I pretended like it wasn't. And on the second day I went, oh, I know none of the things. I know nothing, because you really think that you know something. And my phrase these days, as I've gone through the system and things have changed, is you don't know what you don't know until you know it, right? And that evolution as a trainer also affected kind of my whole life. So really amazing teaching.
Don't know what you don't know unless you know it, right?
Until you know it, really?
Until you know it. Until you know it. Well,
go ahead.
Okay. I was going to say there's a Dunning-Kruger effect. And I'm not saying about you, but especially when people start to get into a new area and they don't really have an idea of how big this industry or how big the philosophy or how big the world of working with dogs is, a lot of times they feel a lot more smart than they ought to, because they have a misunderstanding of what is, and they don't know what they don't know, essentially.
And that's a very hard thing. The first year when I came out of the NEPOPO school, I really thought I was on fire. I really thought I knew what I was doing, right? And then I had the chance to go back to the school again 1 year later. And I remember I went back to the hotel room and I cried myself to sleep. And I posted on Facebook, I just wasted a whole year of my life not doing what I needed to do. And it was because I was only ripe for what I was ripe for, right? It was the amount of information you can take away from the system. Bart says it takes 5 years, and he's not kidding. And I remember being in the school saying, yeah, whatever. I'm going to be the best ever. I'm going to have 1 year. I'm going to be the best. And I thought, I'm going to be the best. Sorry. I'm going to be the best there is in this, and you're not. And then the first year went by, and then I went again to the school, and I was so proud again. And then there's a whole nother layer that I still had missed, that I didn't understand, because you have to be ready for the information. And we're not always ready for all of it all the time. And I've seen that school, I don't know how many times now, and I learn something new every single time. There is a takeaway where I say to myself, he told me that, I didn't hear it. Michael told me that, I didn't hear it. And they say it. And there were several students, like during the testing too, as we were watching, they're like, I don't remember him talking about that. And I say, but he did. And it was on the board, but it's so much information, and they can only hear what they're right for, right? And we all went through that. And I spent a lot of time being like, gosh, man, I just want to be better. You're just driven to do better and learn more. And you continue to stay hungry because there's always a little bit more to learn, always.
Yeah. Well, and I want to start back too to when you just started here, because now the school is on your property.
Mm-hmm.
And when did you get that property, and where is it?
So my property is in Seymour, Missouri, and it has a little bit of an interesting story. And it is something I heard Michael and Bart say at this last school. I'm like, wow, that really is a lot of what it's true. It is dream, dare, do.
The three
right?
Ds.
Dream, dare, do. And you have to be brave, and you have to be able to take a little suffering to be successful. Mostly you have to be brave, and you really have to be okay with the suffering that comes with it. And if you're going to be a business owner and you're going to be a dog trainer, you have to love it enough to not recognize it, when it sucks, because it does, and there's hard times. And so about 12 years ago, my kids were 2 and 5, I think, at the point, and I found this amazing property, 64 acres. It was fenced and cross-fenced, had ponds, trails, all the beautiful things you could possibly imagine, and it was $135,000.
Wow.
And I said, Doug, I'm never going to be a wealthy person, and if I want anything in my life, I'm going to have to work really hard for it. That was what the path was. And so I packed up the boys and we moved to Missouri. Jeff was supposed to be here, my husband, by December, and it took 7 years for him to get here. And so we saw him a couple times a year for the holidays, and he dropped me off in the middle of July. And one of the things about the property that was just a little bit sticky was there was no electricity, running water, or power.
Just a little sticky there,
It was an Amish home that we converted, and it was the first 3 or 4 years, there was nothing. Water was carried from the ponds,
Wow.
And you had quite a lot of livestock, and the kids were small, and, I took them on the tractor and mowed and did all the work. And, I had a lot of really devastating things happen.
Well, I'm going to push this too to the thing here, because we have a little video, and let me see how I can set this up where we can see that one better. I wonder if I can just do it to where it's going to be so. Oh yeah, here we go. So, and can you guys hear me? Let me know in the comments if you can hear me below, because I want you to explain what's going on in this video. And I'm not going to play the music just because I don't want to get dinged for any copyright or anything like that. But just let me know in the comments, people, if you can hear me. And here we are. So this is
the original house, as it was when we moved in. It was, a crap hole. And these were the 2 big buildings. And, it was a lot of, people. I had a dream. I wanted to do something, and I wanted to train dogs, and I wanted to have a farm. And so that's what I did. And I just said, we're going to do it. And I did it. There's the boys.
There they
are. They're very little. And this is such an old video. One of the things that happened was we had a big fire.
Yeah, I didn't realize that, man.
Yes, the fire burned, and it took out the tractor, the big barn.
15 minutes.
15 minutes, it was gone. It was a lightning strike. And we were very lucky to
Wow, look at that
have roads.
tractor.
Yeah.
Look at the wheels off of that tractor and everything. Oh my goodness.
It burned it to the ground. Like every single one was, the whole thing was gone. And nobody saw it. We were just very lucky to be alive. The barn was an emotional, I'm going to get a little teary. It was a very important place to me in that struggle. Because it's where I sat, it's where my peace was, and then it was gone. This was the laundry room of the house at the time. Victor, my son, took most of these pictures, and you have to understand that there wasn't anybody within 7 to 8 hours of this location to help me if I needed anything. And there were a lot of injuries, a lot of things, I fell out of it off a roof and broken bones, and you were just kind of on your own. And you just had to make it happen. The refrigerator was a hook on the back door, and the stove was, a camp stove out front. If you wanted a cup of coffee, you had to drive 5 miles to town. And at the end of the day, you just have to make your dream happen, and you can't wallow in what's happening. So in the video, we went 3 years, no electricity, no running water, no plumbing. We got the well in finally after the 3rd year, and it took another year to get water into the house. Once we did that, the kids laughed all the time because they were like, "How many times are you going to take a bath, Mom?" A lot!
As many times as I want. Don't question me.
And it was a very tough time, but it's part of like that suffering for success that we talk about. You have to be willing to take risks. You have to be willing to work hard, and you can't expect it to just be done. And it's very hard when you see this video to look back sometimes and realize what a fight it was and what a battle it was I have a phenomenal facility now, and I have an amazing place, and it came from absolute unwillingness to give up, unwillingness to quit, a lot of hope and a lot of passion. And when we go back to talking about, when you work the dogs in the Nico system, yep, that was the bathtub, and the wood burning stove was next to it. We heated with wood, and there was no such thing as air conditioning. But when you talk about that and you look at that video and you think about it, and we bring it back to dog training, I had a lot of passion and a lot of hope and a lot of desire that I could achieve my dreams, that I could do anything I wanted if I worked hard enough for it and I tried. And when you have a lot of hope, ignition, drive, and desire, and most importantly, hope, you can take a lot of shit, right? You can take a lot of shit.
I call it keeping your eye on the big prize, man. You do whatever you want, because I got my eye on that big prize. I'm going to reach it no matter what. It's not about no matter what's convenient. It's no matter what. And
if we could bring that back to the dog training and to the NEPOPO system, right? If you have hope and you have desire and you have ignition to do something, you can handle all types of stress and pressure and push through lots of stuff. When you don't have hope, when you don't have desire, when you don't have ignition to do something, even the smallest things can make you fall apart.
That's right.
And that's why
can flatten you out, right?
In the dogs, it's the same. If you take a dog and you start first by making sure you have the ignition, the desire, and the hope, and whatever exercise or whatever behavior you're trying to teach, you can put a lot of pressure, you can squeeze a lot, and the dog is in love with it. He fights through it. It's a little bit the same, and it happens in people too. If you put people under pressure that don't have hope, desire, and ignition, they're going to fall apart. And it's the same with the dogs. And yet in the training regularly, we don't allow that first step, that ignition and that hope to develop before we start. And so once this started happening, you started training more and more dogs. Well, yes, I was training dogs a lot, but not well. But you thought you were doing well, right? I'll never forget. I was in Belgium, and I showed Bart a video of me training a dog, and I was really proud of it. Bart. He looked at me and he's like, You're a good dancer. A dog trainer, I don't know yet.
I love it. Yeah, this is stuff that he says. Hey, Jackie, can you move to the right or to the left? No, to the left. Right. Perfect. There you go. Because now I got your full. Now I got your full face in the on the upper. Remember, I was telling you because all of her training videos, if you watch them, it's her face down and it's all about the dog, and now it's her face up and it's all about you. Hey, Marla has joined us. Good job, Marla. I'm so proud of you. Marla was in the class, and Marla was having a hard time, and as we all were. And she passed, and I was just so happy. And she's like, by the grace of God, or by something when she passed. And you know, and bonding through this experience with so many people in that class has been another great thing that has happened. But so you're a good dancer. I don't know about dog trainer.
Yep, and that was, and I had a long way to go as a trainer, and I still do.
What did he mean by that?
Well, you know, I used to be a master at luring, and when you do a lot of luring, you become a dancer with the dog. It's lambada with the dog, and then your clients also have to do the lambada. And I was a very active trainer with a very inactive dog, which is very typical. And you know, when I was in Belgium I learned so much that when I came back, I said, I have to know more, right? I have to learn more. And the school was, at least as far as the facility being set up for the school, was designed based off of what I really felt was important and what they wanted. You know, it was like, Michael, Bart, what do you want? And there's kind of a little story behind that, is that, you know, when I chased Michael and Bart all over the country, and I'm like, I want the school. And they did the first school here in the US, and I went and I looked at it, and I looked at everything about it, and I analyzed what I thought was a success and what I thought was a failure. And what I see is some of the failures in general between our dog clubs and communities in the US is that we lack community. We lack friendships, and a lot of times we show up at the field, we work our dogs, and we leave. And there's no social part. And if you go to a seminar or you've ever been to something like that with your dogs, you know that a great deal of time is spent thinking about your dog, where you're going to potty your dog, when you're going to get something to eat, where that eating is going to happen. And what I noticed is that it's the social engagement with the students together, as well as the questions that they ask to Michael and Bart when we're not in the classroom, where a lot of the learning happens, a lot of the ahas happen.
Okay.
And so when I built the facility, you know, I was talking to Bart, you know, about it, and Michael, and Michael gave the approval that we could go ahead and do it. The only thing about it was I didn't have a facility. And it's kind of, as a person, my biggest strength is also my biggest weakness. I'm like, that's cool, I can do it. And we built the facility in 3 weeks. 3 weeks. It took less than 20. It was 23 days.
And that's where you're sitting right now, isn't it? Mm-hmm. We're sitting
here. And Michael didn't come that first time. Bart did. And when Bart walked in the night before, we didn't have the cabinets in. Like, refrigerator was sitting in the middle of the room. And he's like, we need a miracle. And when he walked in the next day, everything's done, you know. And I built the classroom so that people could be very formal in there. And then when they walked out of the classroom, they would have a mental break, and they're in a nice, cozy room, you know, with couches and TVs, and it's very cozy, and people can sit and be very close to each other and have conversations and learn from each other.
That's right.
And yes, and the food is very good. We do a lot of food here so that people don't have to worry about anything. Our job as the host is to make sure that nobody worries about anything. We don't care what it is. You got a flat tire, we're going to take care of it. You need to go to the hospital, we're going to get you an appointment. Do you need some sinus medication? No problem, we will get that. Like, I want the students invested in the learning, because I was a student once too, you know, and it does take a lot of energy to try and take care of all those details, and then try to get back in and get refocused on the knowledge. And you will lose something, because, as you know, it is bloody intense.
It is. And every single second of it is gold. I mean, even though it's silver,
Yeah.
every moment of it, like pearls are being dropped left and right. Literally, that's what they are. Bing, bing, bing. Pearls of knowledge. Here you go. Pearls of knowledge. Pearls of knowledge. And not only that, but the way that the tapestry is woven in the presentations, it all starts to come together. And that's where, like, if you miss a certain section of it, then it might not come together for you. It's crucial for that. And if you're worried about where you're going to go get lunch and then come back because being on time is something that is stressed there, and everybody being together, it is an investment to be there and to respect everybody else's time and money, and motivation to learn is important. And I mean, and it also goes by so fast. I remember the hours we were in the class, and then boom, the break would come, and I'm like, whoa, that was an hour. Wow, man. It is so, just, I call it drinking from a fire hose. That's it. Is you have to, there's so much information. There's no way. I can't wait to go back again. One, so I can see the struggle that I went through in others,
Yep. Hmm.
because it is a struggle and it is a challenge. But just like we talk about in the classes, suffering and the struggle is a biological requirement for that learning, for that next step of understanding. Is you're going through it. You're not going around it. You're not going above it. You're not going below it. You're going through this school, and there's no way around it to experience that, right?
There isn't, and what the students don't realize when they're in the middle of the school, and most of them realize it towards the end, or what they don't grab yet, is you are in the system. Like the entire school structure is designed to put you as a human being in the system. And once you understand that as a student, at the end of the link, you're like, wow. And NePoPo at the end of the day is a lifestyle, and it's much bigger than dog training. And I heard somebody say once, well, yeah, NePoPo, so what? Application of pressure, release of pressure, extra reward. That's all it is. And I say to people like that, I'm like, that's like saying the only thing about your car is that it has a gas pedal, a brake, and a steering wheel, and you don't need to know anything else about it, right? It's such a
Point A to
generic.
point B. That's it.
Yeah, and it's not the whole thing. We had one of the students was here a couple of days ago. One of the guys local, and he came to visit and work some dogs. And we were talking about the application of the NePoPo system as far as it goes with pet dogs. And I do have one thing that I disagree with Michael and Bart on, is that the shaping takes longer. My business is training pet dogs predominantly. That's what I've built my business on. My business, due to the NePoPo system, has quadrupled.
Yes.
It's doubled almost every year in profitability, by applying the system to my own personal management of my staff, as well as my family and myself. Applying the system to myself has dramatically increased my profitability. And it is in pet dogs. And so shaping a young puppy is, and a young dog, or a pet dog that's come to you, it takes bravery and guts because it's something new for you.
Yes.
But when the dogs understand it, it's way faster, and the amount of repetitions that you have to have is a lot less. And the dog has a deep understanding of what that behavior is. And when you hand that dog back off to the client, there is no chicka chicka chaka dancing. I don't have to have 6 meetings with my clients on how to dance the lambada, because that's what it is.
Yeah.
Your body movements,
You're a good dancer.
language. Exactly. And I don't have to do that anymore. Before, we had to have, it's like I put the dog on the plane, it goes home, and the dog's number one job is he already knows how to learn to figure out what the heck they want. Now, this young man, great guy, and he is involved in a couple of different businesses. He's got a board and train and daycare, and then they also do stuff with the post-traumatic stress disorder dogs for vets.
Okay.
And we were talking about this same discussion about, which takes longer. And I was training a little puppy, and I said, you know what? I said, while I'm working this dog, I'd like you to think of one of the complex behaviors that you have to teach your dogs for your service dog work. And I said, whatever it is, I'm going to teach my dog to do it in less than 15 minutes. I said, you just think about what that is, whatever it is, and I will do it in under 15 minutes. And I wish I would have filmed it. What he decided the behavior is the dog was to go this way through the owner's legs and face backwards and sit.
Okay.
And so he's like doing a rear guard, but between the legs. And then when somebody came in the vicinity, the dog was supposed to flip around and be forward facing, right? So does that make sense? Like they want the dog
absolutely.
facing backwards in the legs. And I said, okay. And I sat down in a chair and I had my niece, stand. I said, well, he knows the clack clack. He doesn't do center heeling and he doesn't do any rear facing exercises. And it was very clear that the dog didn't know it by the behavior. And in less than 15 minutes, we had that command on verbal control with e-collar stimulus and with heart and soul. And it took under 10 minutes for the dog to figure it out. And he just looked at me. He's like, what in the, and it's because that whole system, it's not just shaping. That little exercise was e-collar stimulation with verbal command, with heart and soul, and the dog figured it out. It was the whole system applied. A lot of people see the system, like the shaping, and they don't realize you have to have a must key. Must have a must.
Mike says that it took literally 7 minutes. He's watching here. So we got witness testimonial right here. And then we also have, I think it was John from the Philippines. If you guys wouldn't mind just texting down below where you're watching this from. I find it so interesting how many places we reach around the world. So in 7 minutes.
And it's not just shaping. I
don't even call it shape. I almost call it empowering. What do you think of that? Because you're empowering that animal. I mean, you're kind of you're doing a little confusion at first, because at first what I heard from you is, because that's the great thing about going with Gold and people that have been through this, is that they can give you a different perception of their experience, but also how they've applied this, because you're getting so much information. You're like, what do I do first when I get home? And you're like, stay away from the 4 big commands that we've been working on already. And you also said, the dog is already used to looking to you for guidance. And we're flipping the script here where we're looking to the dog for guidance, right? Would you speak on that?
Well, we want it to be the dog's own invention, right? And when I have dogs, especially pet dogs or dogs that have had a lot of training that aren't innovative or creative in their behaviors, they get locked in behaviors and they can't think out of the deadly 5, sit, heel, down, place,
stay,
come. And they get locked and they can't think of other things. And so when you have dogs like that, the first thing you need to do is teach them to be innovative and creative and active. And if you've been teaching, I make my dog do, which is what most people do, and I show my dog what my dog must do, a lot of those dogs have no concept of thinking. Like they don't know how to think and they don't know how to do things. And so you want to stay away from behaviors that you've repetitively rewarded by making the dog do, and try and find creative things that just make the dog do, and let the dog be the innovator of his own success. Whatever he wants to do that he finds exciting, that's what we allow. So you don't go out to the spot when you're beginning that and you take your little object, whatever it is, and you set it out with the dog and say you want the dog to sit that day. And the dog walks over and does a backflip off of the chair. And you're like, no, I want you to sit. You missed an opportunity. And the whole idea of that beginning step that we were talking about, especially with dogs that have been made to do versus let to do, is they have to discover the ability to be innovative and be creative, and what they interpret that day of what the behavior is, you must pay it, right?
Yes.
And some dogs, you got your plan all set up. You've got your clack clack there. You want the dog to love the clack clack, and by accident he's 2 feet away and he backs up 5 steps. Mark it. It's okay.
Yeah, start marking everything. That's the other thing you said, is just start marking. And that's what I did. I mean, well, the other thing that's important too is we got to charge up the clicker.
Very important. And a lot of people think they have a charged clicker, and they really don't.
How do you know when you have a charged clicker? That's the question.
Well, there's a lot of things that you just need to go to the school for.
That's
right.
That would be something. Yeah.
I'll speak on some things, but you should hear it from the masters, right?
Right.
For me,
we don't do it justice. I believe me, man.
Not at all. And Bart will say you've got a clicker, whiskey, You want your clicker to be like, whiskey on the rocks, and most people have a Diet Coke clicker.
Yeah.
And
Coke
that's
Zero.
that's very true. How I know my clicker is loaded is I wait for my dogs to be asleep, sound asleep, snoring like logs. And if I mark and they fly to me out of nowhere, I'm ready.
Yeah. Hey, Larry.
Yep.
Larry Cron's on with us. And, we have people, New Jersey, Scotland, England, Seattle, Virginia Beach, Florida, all watching us right now. So thank you very much, everybody, for watching. And Victoria says, with dynamite, charging that clicker with dynamite.
That's correct. And I see a lot of people, with the clicker that don't know what they do with the clicker.
Yeah.
There's a lot of confusion, which you don't get the reflex response in the dog that you want with that clicker loading. And you do want reflex response, right? That's the whole end goal.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Where the reflex, where we say something, the dog's boom, doing it.
Correct.
With heart and soul.
And I see people using a clicker in a click release way in one picture, and then they do click stay in behavior in another picture.
Yeah.
And in another picture, they do click keep on going. They're healing and click feed, and it's a keep on going system. Or when the dog is close, the dog is a click and stay in behavior. Or the dog is far away and they say click and the dog releases and comes to you at a distance. The dogs figure it out, but I'm telling you, it's so much more clear if your clicker has one meaning, click release, and it creates dopamine, dynamite, all the things you want the dog, doing.
Well, in the school, we actually do role playing that will illustrate this, where you get it. I mean, and the obvious, the correct methodology it starts to be clear once you go to the school and experience it.
Yeah, and that's the thing that's the reason the school is so important, in my opinion, is that each one of the students are at a different level of understanding of what the NEPOPO system is, right? Yes. And it takes time to learn that, and the interpretation of each student may be a little bit different depending on where their development is within the system. And when you hear it from Bart and Michael, you hear the whole version, and it's very complex. It's very difficult to understand, but it's simple, but it's hard, right? Yes. It's once you really understand it, and it takes time for that to happen. A lot of the students now have the luxury of actually getting, a chameleon as students now, which is super duper nice. And the Martin system technology, a lot of people are very unaware just because they've not had the opportunity to utilize the tool or the ability to understand it, or they've really been taught about what the differences are in the collar.
Yeah, or they're just used to using what they've used so much. Here's one of the chameleon collars right here, and it's, explain why. I know, and the people that have had their hands on these collars, they call it a chameleon because what does a chameleon do? A chameleon blends into their environment, right? Mm-hmm.
So I want to talk about it in two different ways about the collar for those that are interested. The first one I want to talk about is me as a businesswoman within my business and why the chameleon helps me out. And then also as a trainer, why it's my preferred tool. And the issue with the chameleon, first of all, is, I hear pet trainers all the time like, oh, the price point is so terrible. It's really not. It's, €700 roughly for the finger kick, the collar, and the transmitter. And everybody's always looking at the transmitter. The finger kick is really your thing. If you put that chameleon collar on a dog, you can't see it. You don't have to have a transmitter in your hand. It operates with a very tiny finger kick. You want to hold that up for me?
Yeah,
you got your finger kick there?
I do. I got 4 of them. There we go.
So this goes on your finger like a ring, and clients don't have to carry around a big transmitter. They got the small transmitter. They just drop it in a shirt or a pocket.
Yep.
And a lot of my clients in today's society are struggling with, judgment from neighbors and friends and colleagues.
Can you guys see that red dot whenever I hit this button?
Yep, that's it going.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And then there's the little button right there. Very discreet.
And if you give them the opportunity between the two tools, I promise you they will go with the hands-free modern technology collar that is available, and they will go for the opportunity to not have to be judged by their neighbors. I mean, I have clients that before the chameleon was out, I had one lady, she said the dog was amazing, and she loved the dog, and it was a Dogtra, collar.
Mm-hmm.
And she called me a couple months later and she's like, yeah, I just don't want to wear this e-collar anymore, and this was pre-Nipopo for me. So I was a different type of trainer. And what that dog was very aware of when the collar was on and off. And it was very aware when she had the remote in her hand. And I said to her, I said, look, do you have any problems when he has it on? And she's like, no. I said, do you have to push the button ever? She's like, no, I don't. And she got very angry with me. She was very upset. She's like, I just want my dog to work without this collar. And it took a couple weeks. And then she finally came to me and she's like, look, I walked down my neighbor. I live in a very conservative, area, a very liberal area. And I put my collar on. I walk down the street and my neighbors are yelling at me. People are stopping me in the street. They're telling me a bad person. And I just don't want that. And it does happen a lot to a lot of our clients for, e-collar trainers. The chameleon, all that goes away. And the consumer has the ability to say, for a few extra $100, I can be completely invisible with my tool and nobody's going to see it. And people, I've got the little micro and then I've got the chameleon, and they have two totally different price points. And I don't think I've had anybody take the micro over the chameleon. And they're both great collars, but they just like.
And here's a little
Yes.
TTFK. It's a finger, the transmitter for the finger kick. But this is what people are used to using, right? And then, but this thing just goes in your pocket with the finger kick being the one button. And that's what I tell people, like, don't push this button, don't push this button. We're using this button, And when they have more buttons on the other collars, they're like, which one do I do again? Which one? And I'm just like, but when I hand them one button, and not only that, but it's on their hand. And so the leash mechanics, they don't need to juggle this receiver or this transmitter while they're trying to do some leash mechanics with that dog. And then using the collar as a do versus a don't. We'll get into that.
And that the technology in that collar is far more superior, than it is in any of the other collars. And it has been for a long time, right? The guts of that collar has been advanced for a very long time. As a pet trainer trying to, supply a product to my client that's going to fit well into their lifestyle, that's going to make what I train easier to do, the chameleon is the only way for me to go. And everybody's got their opinions, but that's my particular clientele. It also depends on what your clientele is.
Yes.
But if people understood the tool and they offered them to their clients, the two different options, I'm more than sure that 90% of the time the chameleon would be the collar of choice.
I agree.
The technology in there, one of the things that none of the other collars have, first of all, that people don't talk about a lot. Two are the ID codes within the collar. Most companies don't have very many ID codes, whereas the chameleon has a bunch. So the idea that you're going to push a button and hit somebody else's collar is very, very unlikely with the chameleon, whereas a lot of brands, it's very common. And if you're training together, which people don't do in the US a whole lot, but they do in Europe. So in Europe, when they're training, what they have to do is they have to test their equipment every time, which is a good idea to no matter what system you're using, is just to check your gear and make sure you don't have the same ID codes.
Yes.
But in Europe, we don't train together, so we don't see it very often. But it's very possible if you've got two dogs out in the field and you've got a different type of e-collar, that one buddy pushes the button and the wrong collar gets hit, which can cause accidents and problems. The next thing is that collar is the only one on the market. It's the only one, and it's patented, so none of the other collars have it, that is constantly monitoring the output, okay? And the environment will not affect. When you push level 1, it's always going to be level 1, no matter what's going on in your environment. And for people that don't believe that they think that their collar has consistent output no matter what's going on, I challenge you to put that collar on and stim yourself at a level where you can feel it. Not just a little bit, but like, maybe I don't like that.
Yeah.
And then I want you, a little bit higher level, and then put your arm underwater, do it again, and then take your arm back out when it's wet and do it again. You're going to find out that your collar is not consistently putting out the same stimulation, which means for your training, the chameleon is a much more humane collar, because you never are going to have the chance to accidentally give an involuntary overstimulation that is uncomfortable and unfair to your dog, causing some type of aversive reaction. right?
Right.
When you really just want it to be a 1, and I'm beginning to teach my young dog, what the collar is, it's a huge drama if suddenly your 1 is a 5, right? A lot of people don't find that out because they're only using their tool as a cut the drive
Right. As
and don't do
aversive.
tool,
Yeah.
as a hammer,
Right.
right? And so for those people, they don't care. I just want it to be a hammer. And so you don't find those things out and test it. But if you're wanting to shape with your e-collar, if you're wanting to reinforce and activate your dog on an e-collar, you need a consistent tool. You need to know what the output is going to be. Otherwise, especially in green dogs or dogs that are just getting used to the e-collar, you create aversion and a scar, and then the dog doesn't like that information. And then it really sometimes you can't undo a scar.
Yeah.
It's done.
I mean, it's a jeopardizing of that trust, and the trust is crucial. I mean, trust is what we're doing, and to destroy that is going to make the dog think twice and about a lot of things, man. And that's what Bart calls the I, where we're voluntarily or involuntary overstim. And I mean, there's just so many things that I can think of that can lead to apprehension towards the handler, towards the tasks that we're doing, towards the actual equipment. I mean, even in the school, we had an example of somebody going to go get a bumper in a lake, and he's teaching this dog this, but the inadvertent stim scarred the dog, and now the dog's afraid of bumpers. And so what the trainer was paid to, because of the equipment malfunction, has adversely taught the dog the opposite of exactly what we were meaning to do, right?
And I want to point something out. That wasn't equipment malfunction. That was how that equipment works. So if a piece of equipment malfunctions because it doesn't work the way it's supposed to because you have a mechanical error, is very different than that's the way that collar is always going to work. It's not a malfunction. It's what it does.
That's right.
And people don't research the tools that they use, and it's a very interesting thing. And there's an e-collar for every person and a person for every e-collar. Like Michael and Bart both said this last school. If you only want an e-collar that's a hammer, you only want an aversion tool, you're right. You don't need a chameleon.
No, you could do that with $40.
Any collar.
Yeah. On Amazon with those cheap China-made collars that really are shock collars that are really, I mean, those in my opinion shouldn't have been on the market because they scar dogs, and I deal with the repercussions of that often.
And you said a word, like my dog needs to trust me. And there is, trust in the relationship, but there's also something that creates that trust, right?
Rapport.
And what that trace is, my communication needs to be clear.
Yes.
It needs to be fair, and the dog needs to be able to understand it.
Yes.
Right? And you can have a level 1 or a level 2, and if there is no understanding for the dog, that stimulation could be aversive. Right.
Right. Superstitious. It's something that they've never felt before. It's not the same as me coming up and petting you, and not the same as me pulling on a leash. And same thing when we first put a leash on a puppy, that could be aversive until they get an idea. Oh, this is attached to him, and this is going to help me, help guide me to where I need to be. And it's all about how we introduce it in a proper way. And that's another feature that I love about this collar, and the one that sold me right away. Was the indicator that we are making contact. Where once you turn on the collar, here, I'll just show you on one of these.
Yep, because it's a very, very important feature.
Because speaking of that trust and that proper communication, if we do not have proper contact and we keep on working with that dog, and if you guys can see right here how my lights are going, now watch what happens when I make contact. No contact, contact. And so right from the get-go, no contact, contact. Okay? Right there, that sold me. Right there. Because that by itself is worth it, because we are starting from a point of where I know that this is making contact, where other collars, sometimes you have to keep on rising that up until that dog feels it, and sometimes it becomes that involuntary overstim, and from the very first step of this relationship, we're starting off on a bad foot when you're overstimming your dog.
Yes, and that's something too that there's a lot of discussion about, with the chameleon, and that you do have the contact points here on either side of the neck.
Yes.
When a dog wears contact on one side, they can learn to pull the neck away from contact. And when they drop their head, they lose contact. On a regular buckle collar, it has to be bloody tight for it to work, where this collar flexes, just like you were showing there.
Yep.
And it moves with the dog. The fur comes through the little holes on the chameleon, so you get closer, tighter contact on that.
Okay.
So you get really good contact.
Small, I didn't have any of the collars on my dogs. Even the micros and the mini collars were so bulky on my dogs that it was really affecting the way that they were behaving, because they had this big box on their neck, where this thing, boom, I put it on them. And then the ratcheting down, once I would have to tighten it up, I mean, I would say, it has going to be like your watch, really tight. But a lot of my clients were very concerned. And in a way that I knew that they were concerned by the reaction. They're like, wow, that's super tight. They're walking around the dog. I didn't know that was that tight. Let me feel that, and they're not letting it go. And I'm just like, look, this is kind of the way it needs to be to ensure those contacts are being made. And then when we have that big box there, the box comes down here, and whenever the dog's sniffing, we're not going to have good contact, I love it.
So somebody just talked about, the flex strap, and that what's on that collar is called a perfect fit. And it's one of the tools that it's regularly used in ways that people don't understand the tool that they use.
This one too, with the elastic on the outside too.
Yep. So that's the elastic cover.
Yep.
That covers the chameleon, and then it's completely invisible.
Here's a curly Q, and then we also have the. I'm starting to have a problem with my chameleon addiction here. And then we have the flat, regular flex strap right here.
Mm-hmm. Right. And when you have the perfect fit, which is the elastic, you see people using them all the time, and that when you have the perfect fit, which is the elastic, the e-collar should always be low on the dog, and the buckle collar should be high. And so when I see somebody with an elastic very high on the dog, I see somebody who doesn't know his tools or how the tools were designed to work. And there's a whole explanation about that in the school as to why and how it works and why it's important. And it also goes back to contact again, and the why the tools were designed. Michael and Bart are dog trainers, and the Martin system collars were designed by dog trainers who are, the features that are in them are not whistles and bells. They're not useless things that you don't need. They're things that dog trainers use and that really good dog trainers use. That's designed by dog trainers. What else can you say? A lot of those products were designed by somebody in a science lab and don't understand the nuances of what can occur in dog training, and they created equipment that avoids those things.
That's right. And not only, we're not even mentioning a lot of the features too, but in the school, you're going to learn every single thing about these collars, how to break them down, how to build them back up, how to pair multiple transmitters with them, the different features. But the thing is too, is that they really drive home, check your gear. And
yes. And that is, for me, advice to any dog trainer, no matter what equipment you have. We should know our gear, and we should know our gear well. And we shouldn't need to look to our gear to train our dog, right? We should be able to look at the dog and train the dog. And if you're constantly having to look at your equipment and all these things, you're not training your dog, and you're missing the opportunity to and your timing to be correct. The collars themselves, the way they fit, the transmitters, everything that is on there is designed for you to have as little necessary. You don't have any need to fool with those things. You just need to look at your dog and know how to push your one button.
That's right. Well, and not only that, but we were role playing with people and we decide, what do you want this person to do? And then we would do it. And that's the thing about the school, is that it's knowledge through experience. Mm-hmm. That you can't get from a book. You can't get from even a live stream like this. Once you immerse yourself in it, it's a totally different ballgame, huh?
The school is a very powerful thing. And if you have the opportunity to go to the school, I promise you it will change your life.
Hi, Adrian. That's my buddy that'll help me in the school.
It'll change your life. It'll change your business. You will become more profitable if you utilize the system to its fullest within your life. The concepts you're going to learn are going to be very different than things that you've been taught before. And it will break your brain and it will hurt you. It will hurt your mind because you will look at this and say, this is such common sense. Why did I not know that?
Right.
And in my personal opinion, if you don't walk out of the school with your brain broken, like, where you're going to go home and you're going to start everything all over again. You've got this new knowledge and you're like, oh my gosh, where
It's
you're just
overwhelming, man. It's daunting. And that's why he says 5 years. And I get it because
it's not what people think. You see people who say, oh yeah, I train in NEPO. You don't. Right? You just don't. And a lot of people that went to seminars or heard him talk, number one, they as dog trainers are always, okay, you do need weeks to recover after the school.
Yeah.
But that if you walk out of the school saying, I knew all this, man, you didn't listen.
Yeah.
Right? That's the bottom line.
My brain was crushed.
Yes.
Let's say. Well, and Larry Crone, one thing I wanted to mention that Larry Crone says about this collar versus any other is like, it's not a tool. This is an instrument. This is something that is going to be, this is going to change the way that we interact with our dogs. And it absolutely is. Victoria says, you need a couple weeks to recover afterwards. I am right there in the middle, man. I've only been out 1 week and I'm still exhausted. My brain was crushed. Marla says, mine was too. And I thought I knew a lot, I thought I knew it, I thought I was going to,
and I've seen some extremely talented, very gifted trainers come through the school and walk out saying, I knew nothing.
What's an example of the difference that you learned? I will go first on this one. I mean, just like what I was saying about what Jackie was saying, the dogs look to us. And now it's about putting it on the dog and looking to the dog and kind of flipping the script. That's the start of what I've learned. But also, I mean, but there's old NAPOPO, new NAPOPO. There's little things that nuances that we can go back and forth. But that's primarily, and not only that, but it empowers these dogs. And when I first came home and I spoke with Michael and Bart, Bart was like, what is the difference you're noticing when working with your dogs now? And I gotta tell you, man, it's the tails. Those tails are up. Those dogs are engaged, and beforehand, it was me recreating myself and other people. And if you've ever tried to do that, it's very frustrating, and it's very dictatorship. Where this isn't like that, man. This is not only does it help me work with my dogs, but when I was working with my wife, even this morning, she's like, I love this system. I love this system. I'm like, why? And she was like, because you're engaged with me in a much more constructive way. And I get it. And then also I was telling Michael, after being in gold school, not yet. After being in silver school, it's calmed me down a little bit, even though it's broken my brain. It's calmed me down. And Michael was like, what do you mean by that? What do you mean by it's calmed you down? And I think really it's just filled in a lot of gaps of information that I've tried to make connects that weren't real, that were disconnected. And this allowed me to make the connections in a linear way that it was like, oh, aha, there's so many aha moments in that school. And so that's for me. What do you think? What's an example of a difference you've learned?
I've had quite a few takeaways, some of the biggest ones. The first one is that a correction is motivating, not demotivating. We, as dog trainers, always look at corrections as some type of punishment.
Yeah.
And it's, and that punishment, should make the dog stop doing, right? And in this system, a correction most of the time is a motivator for the dog to do better, right? And we as dog trainers always walk around going, corrections are punishment, bad dog, you did something wrong, and a correction is, it's the same thing as the talent code, they're playing the violin, stop, go again. So seeing the correction as a motivator, not a demotivator, was a big one for me that was very, very hard to wrap my brain around. And I think for most trainers, that's a hard one because we've got so many years of, our correction being mostly never dare do again,
That's
right? Not do better. So that's a big takeaway for me. The next one was really utilizing the e-collar as a shaping tool,
As a
as well
do, as a do, not a don't.
as
Do,
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 not a
do.
don't,
Yeah.
as an activator, a reinforcer of behavior, and the toughness that we get in the dogs. So that was a big one for me on the e-collar being used as a do tool, not a don't do tool, most of the time. There are times, obviously. And, we're pushing the buttons when the dog is doing well. And that's something that's hard for people to understand.
Oh,
They're like,
look
what
at
do you do?
that. We got Michael. Hi, Michael. Good to have you.
Oh, no, I'm really nervous.
There you go. Why'd you have to say anything, Michael? Well,
but those were big ones for me. And the idea that the classical conditioning versus the operant conditioning, and clarifying some of those things. The beauty of the school is a lot of us are doing things from our guts without understanding how it works or why it works.
that was
right.
me. Absolutely.
And we do a good job at that. But I'm telling you, once you put all those things together and you understand why it works and what you were doing from your gut, you can clean it up a lot and go really far.
Absolutely. Well, and that's that calming down. Like I'm good. It's like a correction for me, right? That we go to the school to get a correction to motivate us. Like this is not how it was. And the thing is that one of the most powerful statements that we can make as an individual is, I was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And so many times that they've said that in that school, I was just like, every time they said it, it was like music to my ears. And just like Bart says, that hearing the school is like listening to a song. Every time that you go to that school, you're going to notice different perspectives of that song. Oh, really quick, I forgot to shout out Strong Island. Here we go, Jonathan Katz. I got the hat on. Thank you very much for the hat. Strong Island working dogs. Check them out. Here, let me get a good shot of that. There we go. My hairy hat. So, yeah.
But yes, so I mean, the aha moments keep coming, and they've been coming for years. But it is it's a very complex. It's simple, but it's not easy. It's the best way to put it. And the school really clears a lot of that for you. And one of the hardest things for me to change as a trainer was, and I think is hard for all of us, is it's very difficult to just let the dog do. Mm-hmm. And I was always luring and helping and a little chaotic in my training,
Chicka chicka tonga, or what I do.
And just even in the way I looked at my system, right, of how to do things. And so the timing, I always thought I had really, really good timing, but really what I had was I had good food timing, but not really good command timing. Okay. I had a lot of good training, but I didn't have a must key, and a must that the dog enjoyed, because there's a difference between a dog that has a must key and is miserable with that must key.
That's right.
Or a dog that sees that must as exciting as all of the other behaviors, really waiting till the dog is ready to work, waiting until the dog tells you that it's time to go. We want to go. We want to train right now.
Pushy.
And everything.
Getting pushy dogs, let's go.
And we as dog trainers are always ready to go because we've got the clock and the time, and sometimes we just have to say the dog isn't ready. That's when I was in Belgium, one of the things that Michael said to me was, she said, Jackie, you must be like an 80-year-old woman and don't move. And I was astounded at how much I was injecting myself into the training. That was another big one for me, not realizing. Yeah. And when you go ahead.
No, go ahead. You go ahead.
When you get the opportunity to work with a dog that's loaded with gasoline, hope, desire, intensity in the work, and they are pushing you versus you pushing them, it's a completely different planet. And the thing about the system is that you can turn any dog into that. You don't need to have a Malinois, right?
Right.
I've got my little fuzzy Lugatti, my little fuzzy dogs, and they have the heart and soul of a strong, powerful working dog, and they work like maniacs. You can't even believe that. And the system made them that. The system is what created that.
Yeah. Well, Karen says life-changing, really hard to express napopo to people who are not passionate about dog training and believes all types of training are the same.
Mm-hmm. That is a struggle for students, and it's why the community of the students is such a great thing. There's a great Facebook page when you do graduate from Gold where there's a lot of training shared, and it is difficult once you gain this knowledge with people who don't know how you're training or what you're doing, because I can't tell you how many messages I've gotten over Facebook. You're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because they don't understand, and other trainers won't. And one of the neat thing about being, a Gold student is you do have access to that community.
Yeah.
And I know that, other students that are in the system have helped me dramatically just stopping by, because they know what I'm trying to achieve and they know what I'm trying to do. And their outside voice and interpretation is very, very helpful, and you pick up things. But when you train with people that have no idea what you're talking about, and they look at you like, she's dumb, like, what's she doing? That's not how dog training is done.
Yeah. Well, that's that Dunning-Kruger, what we were talking about earlier. They might not have an understanding of the scope of training or the depth of knowledge that is required to apply this, and that 5-year learning curve too. And not only that, but the bell curve too of the dog that Michael talks about. Like, we're typically working with dogs here, but sometimes we're working with dogs outside of this bell curve. And that's where your network is your net worth. And, I had Gail Lucy, who's a Gold graduate. She gave me some words of advice that I give anybody who's thinking about going to this silver school. Pretend like you don't know anything. Go into it with no expectations. Go into it with nothing but just an open mind, and get ready to soak up a lot every single day. And not only that, but people messaging me during the time that I was in Gold or Silver School that were Gold graduates that are like, "How you doing, Bill?" And I'm losing my mind. I'm like, I don't know if I'm gonna pass. And they're like, "Dude, I'm sure you're gonna pass. Just keep studying." And I did. And man, it was a trip, but it was so cool to have the camaraderie and the rapport of other people that have gone through the same experience as you have. And John says, very interesting. Napopo concept. I'm just a dog training enthusiast that like listening and watching, and it applies to the enthusiast as well. I mean, it's an investment, but it will take the performance of your dog to that next level. Just like Jackie was saying, the must key, and that's 2 words, must, and then a key, like a key and a lock. We're going to unlock that dog's must. You must do this, and the dog will do it. But are they going to do it flipping you the bird? Or do it because they're afraid that they're going to get punished, or are they going to do it because they really truly want to? And that's the key. That's the missing link here that Bart and Michael teach here is how do you build up that dog that's going to want to do this and do it with that heart and soul.
And for those of you out there that are dog trainers and are successful trainers and doing very well, what I will say on a personal level is this system is a hell of a lot more fun than the system you're training in. It is so much fun. You become addicted to the training. And I know for me, that was a big thing. Like, I was really stuck. Like, I was a very, very good dog trainer for what I knew. And I was very, very successful at what I did, but I wasn't having fun anymore.
Burnout.
Right?
Burnout is a real thing, man.
And this, well, because it's make the dog do. It's not let the dog do. And the dog is, there is no thinking going on. There's no fun. There's no adventure. If you've trained a bunch of dogs, then you know that I do this, and then that dog will do that, and then that's what's going to happen. And I can make a dog do anything. I can. If you're a good dog trainer, you can make a dog do anything if you have your leash and your collar and your things and you have your control. But what that picture looks like versus a dog that's being made to do, but loves being made to do and understands your system and has no conflict in the training, it's a totally different ball game of joy. Like, you really enjoy it. It's fun. The dog loves it. You love it. But it's also not, oh, you're my buddy and you're my friend and you're going to do this because you love me. We're partners in this work, and we're teamwork, and we're going to work together, and both parties are enjoying what they do.
Yeah.
And that dog does take that correction with motivation. He doesn't take it as a personal attack, and there's no conflict. Yeah. And Mickey, my Mickey, is a really, really good dog. I was very lucky with him. Bart is still very upset that I do AKC with him.
He's going to bring you a box full of ribbons, he says. He's like, if she wants ribbons, I'll give her ribbons. You don't need to go to AKC.
He was a really great dog, and he was perfect for me because, the dog, as the dog put up with all of my shit, all the mistakes and the things that I was doing. He was just a great, 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 great dog. And somebody was training with me one day, and I was teaching him something new. And they said, well, why aren't you correcting him, in this new behavior? Why don't you give him a correction when he makes that mistake?
Yes.
And my answer was, in my system, if my dog is not doing what I've asked him to do, it's because he doesn't understand. There is no conflict in my training. There's no reason for the dog to not do what I've asked him to do, because I very clearly laid out the advantage for doing it and the disadvantage for not doing it. And since he has a clear path of understanding of how to get what he wants, if he's not doing it, it's because he doesn't understand. And if I correct him there, I correct him for a mistake, not for disobedience.
Well, were you telling me about something about, not doing that enough too. And that's something that when we go home, sometimes we go too far on the purely positive, and don't realize that there is that must key that,
it's the biggest mistake that I made, and it's a mistake that I see a lot of students making, is you walk out of the school with what is very new for you, right? You paid a lot of attention to the things that were very, very new for you, and the stuff that you thought you knew that you didn't really know kind of went to the back burner. And what happens, and what happened to me, and what I see happen a lot, is people come out of the school thinking that NEPOPO is shaping, and NEPOPO is the e-collar, either one or the other. It's either e-collar or they go the other spectrum, right? And the operant conditioning and the shaping is a piece of the NEPOPO system. And it's a very important piece, but it's a piece, right? It also happens to be super fun when you get a dog that's on fire and doing 50 different things. You remember Little Mouse, like I can take her to station. She was even a little dead that day. She was very flat for me that day. And I was like, what happened to her? But the dog was, bouncing all over the place. And you do 16, you sit down and you give the dog an object, and the dog does 20 things in the object. Your instinct is to not push the buttons, or not to apply your knee, or with whatever it is, your mechanical knee or whatever it is. And then you forget your mechanics, and you forget some of the tools that you need to be utilizing. I totally forgot my mechanics. Mechanics went out the window for me. And I ended up with all of my knowledge with dogs that were popo knee on accident, because I was having so much fun with the shaping that I forgot the most important part of the system,
which is the neigh.
Which is, the application of pressure, neigh in the beginning, in the reinforcers and the activators. And it doesn't feel natural when you're first doing it to push the buttons when the dog is doing well. And before you know it,
NEPOPO stands for negative, positive, positive. For whoever doesn't know that, I just remember we don't say that. But sorry.
And yes, I mean the issue is you're having so much fun that you miss a piece of the system in one direction or another, and then you come out of it and you're like, oh my God, what have I done? Because with that Little Mouse dog, it's a tragedy. I mean, I could go back and fix it, but she's 4 or 5 and she's not a competitive dog. But what happens is you're having so much fun that you use a piece of the system and not the whole system, whatever that piece is that you grabbed, whatever it
Yeah,
is.
that pearl that you really latched onto, you know,
Mhm.
and that's what. Let's see here. Well, it says AKC is hard, very technical. Respect. I think that it is. I mean, they definitely have, and I wish that they would do a lot more obedience aspects in the AKC and a lot more obedience stuff for the rally and the agility, because I've seen some pretty crazy dogs and heard some incidences of dogs that have attacked other dogs and stuff at different or different events. But let's see here. Gosh, the stress was incredible. Even with having such a great mentor, Victoria. She came with Victoria. I struggled putting it together theoretically, but so many revelations were discovered, and I understood more as a week passed. I love what Michael said about the dog. Perceives he's in most pure democracy. In reality, it's in a pure dictatorship, because he believes that he is the inventor of all the behaviors, and the dog believes that they're manipulating us. Man, that's what I like too. Is like my little cattle dogs. They're just like, aha, I got it, you know. And now I got, like, I'm buying all these little things. Like I just got this today, which is like a little bell, you know, that the dog rings, and man, they get it immediately. Yeah. And not only that, but I was telling my wife, I mean, it's just so much fun to do. I mean, one of my goal was to have my little girl stand on the back of this bowl with two hands and just look at me for a second, and you know, we got it pretty quickly. Now it's going to be that for me, the must key. And I think I'm going to have to just go to the class again. And good thing I have people like Jackie, and good thing I have my other graduates that I've already been talking with almost, well, yeah, every single day we've been talking about little nuances that we need to include, and just helping each other out with getting the dog to really understand this stuff. And isn't AKC a menopause thing? Good old Eurus. Shut it, Eurus. So Stacy said something here. She needs to look. I think I need to look into upcoming classes and programs. And the last Silver School sold out. And so
here's what I'm going to tell you. I got some very exciting news. I am very honored because I don't get to do this. Like, I'm a support person, and I believe in NEPOPO so much. People don't realize how much personally I've invested, because I believe in Michael and Bart so much, and I believe what they have to teach people brings real joy to dog trainers, and it's amazing, and it'll change your life. And so sometimes I get a little extra responsibility, and I got the okay to announce the next silver. Now, I will tell you that the Silver School was completely full this last time, and they did have to turn people away, which was rough, and nobody ever wants to do that. And we're definitely as a facility and a host, I'm going to be working on that problem so that they don't ever have to do that. But right now, the Silver School did fill, and we were at max capacity. So they went ahead, and the next silver is going to be March 16th through the 20th. Mark it on your calendars. And that's going to be, and then the gold will be July 1st through the 5th. And you'll want to message Michael and Bart, and maybe Bill can, put up the email there if you're interested in attending to the school. We do.
Email is info@bartbellon.com. Is that what we're doing here, or which one? I don't know the email, the best email.
I think that's, let me see the one.
The info, that's the one I got. Info@bartbellon.com. That's what I'll put. I'll put it down in the comment section here.
It's absolutely something a newbie could do, Gina. A lot of people that have the best success, honestly, are people who know nothing about dog training. Because
I highly recommend them newbies.
I've seen people that have never trained dogs walk out with the best results because their minds aren't filled with other things, and it definitely will. It's an amazing thing. We do serve breakfast, lunch, and dinner here, like I said. So it's a nice facility about 4 miles from town. We do have a couple of bunkhouse cabins on the property too, for people to stay in. Not many, but we do have a couple.
All right, there we go. Info@bartbellon. Yeah, I think that is something that a newbie, in fact, this is because us as trainers that have gone through this, that we have to fight all this old programming and teaching and habits that we have here. And so, yeah, as somebody as a newbie, if I started out as Nepopo, man,
No,
you know,
Karen, you do need to complete gold before you can participate again for the silver. So you
right.
have to, so for the students, one of the things that Bart and Michael offer is that, Michael is very supportive of the students, so is Bart, and they want you to continue to learn and grow. So once you've completed the gold, if there is room, you can reattend the silver and the gold. The gold, you're an auditor, unless there's room for you, which is rare, but you still learn a ton by watching. And right now, the way things are structured is you can attend those, as long as there's room. You have paperwork you have to fill out. We definitely have to have chairs and seating and make sure we know that there's room for everybody. But you do have to complete gold.
Yep. And then I'm going back again and again and again. I know I'll be doing this probably 5 times, six
It's
times before I really am secure and confident with it,
and you'll learn something, every time. Every time that they come, because it's a different dynamic of people, it's a different dynamic of dogs, and so you always pick up something new.
What were the dates for the new gold class? You have them there?
July 1st through the 5th.
Okay, July 1st through the 5th. I'll put that down in the comments as below as well. And then, so the gold class is more hands-on, right? Where the silver class is more theory.
Well, so it's structured the way it is. So when I went to the silver and gold, it wasn't called silver and gold back then. It was just the Nepopo school, and I was there, I think, 4 or 5 weeks in Belgium. And
Teresa.
and the upside for me was I had a little puppy, which was my Mickey, that went through the school, and that's what I saw. So I became very, very good at the operant part of things, because I had a young dog when I started. I didn't have the opportunity like the gold students do now to see dogs of different levels. Bart and Michael's dogs were obviously perfectly trained, and I got to see those, and then the little puppy. But it was very difficult for me to try to learn the system and try to teach the puppy. And one of the problems is that
there's a couple glasses. The July 1st through the 5th, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, is for a new class that they've just scheduled. So the April classes are still going on as well.
Correct. So the July will be for the March students. So your date is correct, Brandon. Your date is correct. It's just that's for a different, like, silver gold group. So the what was that? I forgot.
I forgot too. I was hoping you'd remember. I was like, dude, I just.
And I got squirrel.
Oh, their dogs are impeccably trained.
Oh yeah, they were very, very well trained. And so the issue with doing silver and doing gold, and the reason it has to be separated like that, that's why this silver school is generally for these. This gold is usually for these silver students. Is because you have to be able to go home and put your dog in the system. If you don't have ignition, if you don't have hope, if you don't have desire, if you don't have a loaded clicker, you're wasting your time. So you have to go home and have a couple of months for your brain to defry, and then get whatever dog you have in the system. If they did it together, like back to back, or if they did the silver and then you went the next month the gold, the reality is it's very possible your dog would not have the necessary starting pieces to actually take advantage of the gold school.
Yeah. Well, I know that they told me that, the gold is more challenging for people too. I mean, and if the silver was challenging, I mean, it's more fun, right? Because it's much more hands-on stuff, and, where this is much more in a classroom and you're working actually with your dog. But, I mean, it's all challenging. Just come into it with the mind that you're about ready to get your butt kicked a little bit, and to struggle, but that's it. repost the April goal dates. Do you have the
Okay,
dates?
so yeah, I just pulled it up so we could see. So the April goal dates, which are for the students that have already completed, is the 6th through the 10th.
Yep, and I think they're going to be adding. They possibly might even add on another week of that because of the interest that they've already have already received. So
Yes, I'm not sure what the status is right now, but I do know that if they need to do a second school, that it would be the week after.
April 6th to the 10th. April gold school dates. Here, I'll put it right here so it doesn't look too confusing. And then that's about it, man. What do you recommend for people that want to find out more about this stuff? I mean, you have videos. Let me actually let me see if I can pull up before we go. I want to make sure. I want to see if I can pull up maybe some of your videos of the shaping that you've done. Any videos that you recommend that me pulling up at all? Any dogs that you've worked with?
I've got a lot of them. That's a tough question. Let me take a look here.
Well, I know that the box, I mean, we can talk a little bit. I mean, all this stuff that you're going to learn in it, but let me go on some in your page here. I'm going to look at some of your videos and photos here. And then,
So
go ahead. I was going to say, if you're friends with Jackie, that they're all on her page here, you know, on her personal page.
Kind of videos you can see, and then also on the YouTube channel that show a lot of the little operant conditioning games and things that we do. For people that are interested in, you know, going to the Silver School, I would recommend reaching out to Michael via email as early as possible, you know, because that school does fill up very quickly. For those of you who've already completed Silver School and are coming to the next gold, I would tell you to, so that little one with Keith there, this one here. This is a really good video of some circuit training. Puppy's, I believe, 12 weeks old in the video. And
hold on, I'm going to put the sound because I think the sound is good to hear on this one. So here, I've just put the sound on. So
okay. And Keith has never worked with this dog before. It's the first time he's ever seen it. He just stopped down for a visit.
Next station.
That's Jackie talking. Yeah, station. And this is circuit training. We're on the circuit.
And this is just about creating activity with the puppy. It's really not about, you know, Keith doesn't really know what the dog can do or what the dog can't do. He's never seen the dog work, so he's just marking fun behaviors of activity.
And this is a training facility that would be working gold and silver. This is Jackie's place. I love it.
He'll go under too, Keith.
It's just about clicking and marking any behavior that is, you know, the dog's idea.
Yep, it's just an invention, you know, and the dog doesn't know Keith. And he's just whatever you want. This dog actually does a lot more innovative things with the box, but Keith doesn't know that. The dog will actually go under the box. He'll flip the dog's box over. But, you know, like I said, he clicks and the dog does. So since he doesn't wait there, the dog just kind of does the same little repetitive behavior.
How old is that pup?
I think about 11 to 12 weeks in the video, if I remember correctly.
There's a clack board. The jump there, that silver split. And the dog, it's got like a spring, so the dog nails it. Oh, here comes to Jackie.
Yeah, poor mama.
Oh, you should have clicked that under the chair. I would have.
Exactly. You know? And that's about, you know, being creative. This is a little scent work exercise. One of the two
Number 2 has the odor. Very cool. I'll see if there's one with you.
And then this is just a little skateboard. Puppy's never seen it.
Look at that tail.
Mm-hmm.
That engagement, that tail, that enthusiasm.
And next station.
And so, you know, but there's a lot of little videos on there for the gold students.
Look at all these mammals there.
I think there's another little
flashlight right here. Okay. And then they have a box that they train them in, and that's what we call aquarium. Put them back in the aquarium here. I'm looking for the like a cone or.
Yeah, I've got. They're coming up on them there. So here's go back up a little bit. This is some operant shaping here. The one that's 36 seconds there, or that one either. So this is a pup about 10 weeks old, and I think he's learning a retrieve on a metal dumbbell. And we're switching them because one of them has odor and one does not. Oh, we can put them together. There you go. And then there's another, if you go down, there should be.
That's my. Look at those. And how do you say Lago? Right?
Yep, Lagoto, Roman YOLO. So let's see.
And then you sell these puppies, don't you?
Mm-hmm. So here's one. Go to all the way to the left, 39 seconds. So this is a little pup, approximately 6 weeks old. In this video, the Skinner box is now on the ground. So he's learned to ring a doorbell there, and about 6 weeks old.
Look at that. That's what gets me about these. Enthusiasm with the cat right there,
Mm-hmm. In this system, in the NEPOPO system, you don't have distraction problems because you don't have motivation problems, right? If you have a distraction problem, it's because you have a motivation problem.
And then how do people, where do they find your pups, and how do they, if they want a pup from you, what are the steps?
I've got a website, and then, so here's one. This is a nice little one, that 446. That's a cone deal, but there's tons of videos that they can watch. As far as, I've got a website called lagoto.info, and then.
This is the part where we call uncomfortable silences. Everybody wants to help.
That's where we come in, and we're, as dog trainers, that's where we're wanting to fill that silence.
Involve yourself, right? Because the puppy's never seen this. Those are the new owners in the background.
And because of the way we build most young puppies can't work like this. Because there's so much pressure, but this is no pressure. This is active dog, inactive handler. It's something that the trainer that you're going to use will probably have never seen, but Barbara knows the trainer, and it seems to me when I looked at very busy, know what they're doing, so they obviously are probably a good trainer. With this foundation, they don't have to train. The dog has the foundation of learning, but this is just. It's a very interesting and powerful method, because the dog works, I don't.
Right. Well, the dog's not getting the results that they want, so they'll start to explore their environment.
And we see a little bit of vocalizing. The dog looks at it with the nose, and by the end of this video, the puppy goes around the cone both to the left and to the right, and the puppy has no idea what I want. They figure it out for themselves. Little nose touch there. And right there, you saw the dog grab it.
I give her more food. Now,
Now, normally on training day, I would stop here to get the jackpot because we've worked quite a long time,
and the
and the belly's getting quite full.
And now
we say 1, 2, 3. That was nice.
So
So she's thinking, okay, so it does have something to do with this stupid orange snake.
And about how much food should they get?
You know,
About 3/4 of a cup. She's getting a full meal here. This is how she eats.
Okay.
In my world, this is the only way food ever comes.
Okay.
And it's a game that we play, and I tell people to think of it like
having
having dinner with your kids.
It's
It's
5
5
to
to
15
15 minutes of
bonding
bonding
time
time and relationship creating.
And
And a young puppy, you keep this fresh. You do different things, and you're only as limited as your imagination.
I
I have one dog that with this cone
will
will
literally
literally
knock it
knock it
down,
down, pick it up, bring it to you, take it away, put 2 feet on it, try and stand on it.
You can
You
teach
can
them
teach
to
them
do
to do
50
different things with this
on
on one object,
and
and it keeps the brain moving.
And in
And in this breed, it's absolute you need to wear them out.
It's mental
stimulation over exercise.
The brain utilizes a third of the body's resources, and so when that thing's going,
But
it's chugging
it's because the
along.
puppy's thinking, right? I'm not doing anything.
And it's
And a very forgiving system. You can make a lot of mistakes in your timing.
The
Boom.
The dog will understand your timing eventually, and they will figure it out.
And we're
And we're about 2 or 3
behaviors
behaviors away from getting full circle around the cone.
Normally
Normally, what I do, and when it happens, is I stop. Everybody wants to keep going until they get the final behavior.
And listen to the people, how
And there
proud
she gets
they
a
are.
whole bunch,
So there's
which
a,
means that's what we wanted.
And we
And we wait again.
Putting it together, those wheels are turning.
Now, I know I'm guessing the schedule, what time do you have for feeding her?
It varies day to day, depending on, but anywhere from say 7 in the morning to 10, but it's really up to one.
Okay, so if she does this, if the first thing she does is let her out, she does this and like that.
and that's a very young puppy, that's doing that. That's doing those behaviors, and like I said, that's part of the system, not necessarily.
That's not quality. What is this?
That's not something to show. The dog was just sitting on my system head for a reason.
Whatever, we click that, climb the human, But that's it. I mean, look at the.
So that one there is a little. Mike Subtle was out, and we were doing what is called assisted shaping, and you can kind of look at these on your own. But if you scroll down some more there,
Yeah, these are all on Jackie's personal page, folks, and there's tons of videos that illustrate, the type of training. But also, I tell people, let the dog be our expert. And so, and not only that, but look at the faces of the clients that you're working with, how excited and enthusiastic they are, and how proud they are of their dog.
they love it. They can't. So there's a little. I think
There's
that's. This one, the one on the left. No, you can. That one, yeah.
This
There's
one?
so. Yep. So this is an example of, this behavior was taught sitting in a chair. I didn't move, about 12 weeks old.
That's a frustration that builds motivation.
And usually when they're barking like that, they're about to figure it out. And you see that dog really working.
Yeah. Let me do this, let me do that, no. Good job, dude.
And then, this is an interesting little dog, honestly. And it's a dog that's very right for the system. This dog actually hates my guts. And her name is Hitch because it rhymes with bitch. And if you really listen, that dog's very, very upset with me. But she's a dog that was very shy and reactive, and she was a dog that you had very, very difficult time touching. And she's really mad. Like, people are like, oh yeah, but she's really telling me, you click that thing, you dumb woman.
You're like, come on, what do you want here? Good job, buddy.
You know, and the dog learns, and if you just, by the end of this 1 minute video, the dog learned how to sit with her butt on the box backward. I want more, so I wait for a little bit more. The puppy goes up.
But look at this.
And I'm laughing because this wasn't my plan, right? It happened on accident. It was spontaneous behavior that you could never create again, that the dog by accident did, and therefore I marked it, and it became a behavior in 3 days that was marked back, you know, and you say back, and she goes back and both feet sit on the box, and then she's done. But that wasn't the intention of the training. I didn't go out and say, this is what I'm teaching that dog. I just had an opportunity to mark something that, you know, showed up. And you can hear me laughing. I'm like, what are you doing, you idiot dog? You know, because it was totally unexpected.
Well, this box is something that we utilize a lot of different ways. And there's a jackpot element, the training session ends, and that's it. You know, it's something that.
Dopamine box, you know.
Yep,
but yeah, so I mean, there's the farm is it's a very fun place to come. It's a fun place to come to train dogs. We do consider, you know, NePoPo students our family, and we're always, as a host, I've been very lucky to get to meet, and I'm just the host. Like I just get the honor of being able to learn, and it's been a huge benefit, you know, to me as a person. And I just am so thankful to you know, Michael and Bart. It is very difficult. They have a full business with Martin Systems. They have amazing equipment that I'm so glad that they sell and continue to reinvent and invent more and more products for us to be able to utilize as dog trainers.
Yep.
And I've just been very, very lucky.
You know, not engineers for dog trainers, it's by dog trainers for dog trainers. Not just dog trainers, but some of the best dog trainers in the world that have the medals and the ribbons to prove it, you know. And not only that, but just look at their dogs and look at how enthusiastic they are in the heart and soul, and they're walking the walk. We're getting to the end here, so I want to make sure to go through some of these questions here. Catch up on anything I might miss.
Kate Johansson there had a really good question. If she's still on, do the silver or gold trainings teach ways to fix super reactive, dangerous aggression in older dogs? Is it more for sport performance? The answer to that question is it is an excellent system for almost every type of dog that you need. And when you talk about reactive, dangerous, aggressive older dogs, that can mean a lot, but let's just break that down just 1 minute real quick. You know, the system and the dogs that Bart and Michael trained in the old days were very, very serious bloodlines. And they were dogs that if you got in their asses and they deemed it unfair, they would come up the leash after you and they would hurt you. And so in my opinion, you know, the operant conditioning, and, you know, I saw a correction in Belgium that Bart did on one of the dogs, and the dog was doing scent work, and the dog decided to pee on a tree. So he gave, you know, a high level aversion, because we don't want the dog to ever pee on the track, you know. And that dog, rah! And I'm quite sure that if he believed that correction was coming from Bart, that there would have been a bite, that he would have been injured. The operant conditioning part that is the real, you know, Karen Pryor dolphin training type thing is the same thing they use with a lot of zoo animals, and animals that, again, if piss off the tiger, he's going to hurt you. You know, and most of the zoo trainings where they teach them to open their mouths and, you know, show the belly so they can do the ultrasound. It's all done in a true free shaping click release system. So that's how a lot of them work. And in a system that's fair, where you have a must key that the dog understands, and you have behavior under stimulus control and verbal command, and your tools are used appropriately, in my opinion, the NePoPo system is exactly what you need for reactive, dangerous, aggressive dogs. a very clear picture, a way to teach them where it's their idea, from the beginning. The foundation is you let the dog do, right? And you manipulate that. So again, what was it earlier that, it seems like a democracy, but really it's a dictatorship, but the dog doesn't know it's a dictatorship. And then you allow the dog to find his or her advantage for themselves in the system. And that brings confidence and strength in a dog. And there's a lot of different, within the school, they talk about how your rewarding systems and what you do in your rewarding systems and your consequence systems can either create dopamine or you can create stability. So you get both options and both educations on evaluating both dogs that need, they need no dopamine, they need a little down, or the dogs that need the dope and they need that to be confident. And the system addresses both of those. And so my answer to your question is yes, it is not just it's for all types of dogs and all types of training. It's not just for sport training. I do a lot of behavioral rehabilitation myself. And when dogs finally come to me, it's because they get shipped on a plane from New York or California or Florida because they've tried everything else and the dog is an absolute disaster. And so those dogs get put on a plane. Yes, and Michael said that dog, Michael got a really point, the dog received that correction, what Michael was just talking about, and the dog went right back into the work with heart and soul because even that correction was still seen as motivation to do better and to do the job you know very well how to do. So that was an important thing that I didn't mention. But
I look at it as like the dog's like, whoa, what the heck was I thinking? And that's it. Like some of the biological stuff that comes up, man, and and sometimes it just needs a little reminder. A correction is that do the stop doing and start doing this one thing that we've told you, the must key. And
there must be a must.
There must be a must. Just curious. Normal clicker trainers click the clicker ones, Napopo, click multiple times. I don't know the difference with Pavlovian perspective. Is there a reason? No, I mean, how would you say that?
The funny story, like if you ask Michael and Bart, they say that they like rhythm. Like there's a little like and I don't know why there's one or two for real. I know for me, it's how what my mentors taught me, so it's what I do. And where it's helped me later is I don't carry a clicker around for Mickey anymore, is my clicker. And I think that the click of the clicker is easily paired, but I don't know that there's a real reason for it. It's just how I learned the clicker from them. So it's what I do. And then a lot of the students see them do it. So I think that's why. But it's I think people make more of a thing out of it than it really is. Click once, click twice. It's really up to you.
Since I met Bart in a seminar, I've followed his videos and interviews online, Facebook, YouTube. My training understanding has changed a lot. Oh my gosh, just wait till you go to the school and have planned to do the silver and gold. Great. Listening to you guys here has been very worth it. Thanks for the conversation, Bill and Jackie. You betcha. Let's see. Thank you so much for sharing. Can't wait to see you all again and learning more with you. I will be posting on Silver Facebook on my progress preparing for gold. I don't even think I need to be a part of that freaking page. I forgot all about it, man. That's how out of it I've been. I need to go to the. I have to go to a meeting. Somebody please monitor Eurus. I don't think that's possible. Let me see. Anything else? Sounds like this could be really cool for nervous dogs. Absolutely, man. I deal with so many of them. I do too. And I own 2. So I've been looking at something different that could take their training to the new level. All right, briefly, it's great for silver dogs. April 6th through the 10th Gold School. People just graduated silver. Yep. 11th through the 15th. That's for us. I'll be at that school as well. And that's it, man. What do you think? Anything else you want to touch on? I know that we've been going for a while.
I would just say 3 things, and then I'm gonna stop. The first one is, for those of you that want to attend silver, please do reach out to Michael. She's extremely helpful and can help you through the process. For those of you that are gold, just remember hope, ignition, and a loaded clicker. That's your go-to. For anybody interested in the Martin Systems collar, if you have, questions about that, or you want to see more about that technology that we talked about earlier, or you have questions about that, feel free to message me over Facebook, and I'll be happy to answer, any of your questions. And again, for those that are talking about, the price point, it really is not as big as you think it is, especially for your clients. That's number one. Number
Well, don't
two,
sell your clients short either,
yes, because,
you don't know what you don't know.
people spend, $1,000 on an iPhone, and then they replace it in a year. And if you give them the opportunity to understand the equipment, they will for sure, and you to understand the equipment and know your gear is what the differences are. And again, those of you that have other e-collars, I challenge you to really understand the difference between your stimulation when the environment affects it, like we were talking about earlier. Test it. Even if you're completely loyal to your equipment and you love it, just test it, even if you hate the Chameleon, to know your own tools, to know what you're doing, and understand where things can get very wrong for you in the training simply because you aren't aware of that problem. And the problem we were talking about earlier, for people that weren't on earlier, is that the Chameleon has a patent that is constantly testing the environment. So the stimulation that you receive will always be the same, no matter what, whether the dog is wet, dry, it's always the same. It measures contact. It lets you know if you have contact or you don't have contact with the lights. Those are all really important features of the collar. And if you're a big believer in your own e-collar, I challenge you to take your collar, put it on a high-level stimulation on your body, a high-level stimulation where you can feel it, and then put your hand under water, stim yourself again, and then take it back out and stim yourself again. You're going to find out very quickly that your product and your desired e-collar does not have consistent stim. It does not. And there's a lot of things that are going to affect it, which means you could very unfairly overstimulate your dog when you mean to give a correction or even a reinforcer, and you end up giving an aversive stim because your product, like Bill had said earlier, that product isn't malfunctioning. That's how that product works, right? That's what it's supposed to do. And you should know your gear, no matter what gear you use, whether it's the Chameleon or a Dogtra or whatever it is. You should know your gear so that when you train, you know the holes in your equipment so that you can be fair to your dog.
That's right. And check your gear before you start the training to make sure that's on the right settings. That's what's been driven home during these schools. Mm-hmm. And I know it's going to be driven home even more during the Gold School. And I can't wait to be back out there with you. And thank you so much for being such a great host. And you guys, if you didn't watch the video, or if you didn't start watching this at the beginning, go back and watch it as a replay, because I want you to look at the journey that Jackie has been through and where she's at now. And I can't even imagine where you're going to be here in the next few years. And I'm so excited to call you a friend and to be along this journey with you and to be in that NAPOPO network. And as a chicken that shouldn't be out of its coop just walked by my window that I now got to go catch. I didn't go
my life.
My chickens. Yeah, exactly. But that's, it's just great to be on that space. It's private. And it just is like an encapsulated kind of space of just learning. And you guys saw the space that we're working with dogs at. It's a dream space for a trainer, and you can take a lot home with you when you go there, not just from the Gold School, but also from how Jackie does things and the network of people that you're going to meet with the same goals and desires that you have. It looks like Stacy already emailed the info address. Hey, Michael, too. I just sent up the info at Bart Bellin that is listed on the NAPOPO School cover here. If you have a better email address for people to get a hold of you, please let me know down below, and I'll make sure to share that. And I cannot recommend the NAPOPO schools highly enough. And as somebody that has been through countless seminars and had plenty of teachers and stuff, this has been probably the most profound experience in my dog training life. And I can't wait to go again. Repetition is the mother of learning, and I will be attending these classes over and over again. And Teresa, I love you, Teresa, who shared a house with us during the school, says that's fantastic podcast. Thank you. Gold and silver have been the best investments I have made in myself, and I couldn't agree more.
I have to say, in closing, that Nipopo has changed my life. And I mean that as sincerely and completely as I possibly could. My business is quadrupled by applying the lifestyle of Nipopo to my business. It is an investment in yourself as a dog trainer and knowledge. It is a system that applies not only to dog training, but people management, relationship management. It's a whole thing. And if you, Bill, now that you've gotten this knowledge, I'm telling you, if you apply it to your life is going to change so dramatically and in so many different directions. It's just going to be a happier life with a lot more success in the things that you want. Really do. It's changed my life.
Well, it's already changed my life in a few days, and I can't wait to see how much more. And like I was saying to Michael, it's just calmed me down, and I can't wait to go and start shaping my dogs. And I went and bought a bunch of lumber. I spent like $500 in lumber. I'm building all these tools that I've learned, and I'm ignited. I came home with cigarettes in my eyes. No, wait. I came
Almost right.
with my eyes burning like cigarettes. But so info@bartbellin.com, and message Jackie, message me. We got another person from the Philippines, and thank you everybody around the world for watching this. Hit that share button. Let's get this information out to as many people as possible. I love and appreciate you, and I'm so happy to call you friend, Jackie, and I'll be tapping into your brain a little bit more as I go along too. You've already helped me significantly, so. And if you wait for just 1 second, I'm going to say goodbye to you on the other side here, but we'll say goodbye to everybody here. Okay. And thank you everybody for joining me, and we'll see you next time. Bye.